The morning light slipped softly through the tall windows of their New York apartment, gentle and almost apologetic, as if it knew it was intruding on a moment that didn't want witnesses. Kelly Ripa sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee she had long forgotten to drink, while Mark Consuelos watched the steam curl and fade, much like the certainty they had taken for granted for years. To the world, they had been the couple who laughed easily, teased effortlessly, and loved loudly. But behind the quiet of that morning, laughter felt distant, replaced by a heavy silence neither of them knew how to break. It had started subtly, a missed workout, fatigue brushed off as overwork, small signs that were easy to ignore. Kelly had noticed before anyone else, asking one night if he was okay, watching him sink into the couch instead of lacing his running shoes. Mark smiled, reassuring as he always had. But this time, the smile didn't quite reach his eyes. The diagnosis. The news didn't arrive with drama or urgency, but quietly, wrapped in careful words, probabilities, and medical jargon. Not one sentence held certainty, and yet the weight pressed on them both. The doctor spoke gently, as though each word could protect them from the fear quietly settling in the room. It wasn't immediately life-threatening, he said, but it demanded attention, rest, and a reevaluation of how Mark approached his health and his relentless drive. For someone like Mark, the idea of slowing down was terrifying. Kelly squeezed his hand during the appointment, anchoring herself as much as him. In that moment, the world shrank to the rhythm of his breathing and the silent promise she made. They would face this together. Public reaction. When the news reached the public, carefully filtered and framed, it sparked speculation and headlines. Everyone wanted answers, certainty, details. But Kelly understood something deeper. Real fear is quiet. It sits with you in the dark, wakes you at 3 a.m, and refuses easy explanations. When she spoke about it publicly, she didn't share specifics about the diagnosis. She shared vulnerability, the truth of living with uncertainty. Nothing prepares you for the silence that comes when you're afraid to ask questions you don't want answered, she admitted. Her voice cracked slightly, not for drama, but for honesty. She spoke of strength as something exhausting rather than heroic, of loving someone so deeply their pain feels louder than your own, of the helplessness of watching a partner who has always been your rock suddenly lean on you. Facing change. Mark struggled most with the loss of control. He wasn't angry or in denial. He feared losing himself in a world that never stops moving. I've always believed in pushing through, he told Kelly one night, voice low. What if stopping means I don't recognize myself anymore? Kelly reached for his face, holding him the way she always had, and whispered, maybe it means you finally get to meet a part of yourself you've been too busy to know. Recovery, they realized, wouldn't come in straight lines. Some days were bright with hope, laughter, and renewed energy, almost like normal life. Other days were heavy with frustration and unanswered questions. They adjusted routines, morning walks instead of runs, quiet dinners instead of crowded events. And in those moments of stillness, something unexpected happened. They began to truly listen, not just to schedules or doctors, but to each other. Lessons in love and patience. Mark learned that rest was not weakness. Kelly learned she didn't have to be strong every moment of every day. Love, they discovered, didn't always require grand gestures. Sometimes it meant sitting in silence, holding hands, breathing through uncertainty. When Kelly addressed the diagnosis publicly, she chose her words carefully. This wasn't a story about illness, but about awareness, about noticing life, about choosing love over fear, even when fear is loud. The response was overwhelming. Messages came from people seeing themselves in her words, spouses, partners, families navigating their own quiet battles. The story transcended celebrity. It became universal. Everyone, at some point, sits at the kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee, wondering how life shifted without permission. Embracing the present. Today, Mark is not defined by that diagnosis, and neither is Kelly. What defines them is what came after. The courage to pause, the humility to adjust, and the love to move forward without guarantees. Heartbreaking news doesn't always bring devastation. Sometimes it awakens insight. As morning light continued to fill their apartment, Kelly lifted her mug and took a sip, smiling despite its chill. They were still here, together, choosing hope one quiet day at a time. Weeks turned into months, and something gentle but profound settled over their lives. Fear never fully disappeared. It lingered like a shadow, but it no longer ruled them. Instead, it became a reminder to be present, to savor ordinary moments once rushed through. Rediscovering joy. Mark began writing again. Not scripts, not schedules, but fragments of thoughts, gratitude, questions without answers, reflections on aging, strength, and vulnerability. Kelly would find his notebook open on the counter and read it slowly, as if listening to his heart. Their laughter returned, not the polished kind for cameras, but the raw, shared laughter that comes from inside jokes and unspoken understanding. They danced in the kitchen again. Arguments over small things faded, replaced by awareness of life's fragility. Kelly realized that opening up hadn't weakened their public image. It had made them human. Mark, once afraid of slowing down, found unexpected peace in stillness. The future remained uncertain, as all futures do, but uncertainty no longer felt like an enemy. It became a prompt to love fiercely, to listen deeply, to appreciate the gift of today. Growth and connection. Some news breaks your heart. Other news teaches it how to beat stronger. They came to understand that this chapter, born of fear, had offered clarity. Life was no longer measured by calendars or milestones, but by slow mornings, quiet nights, and meaningful connection. Mark no longer chased every horizon. He chose those that truly mattered. Kelly, ever the storyteller, realized that some stories need no audience to hold meaning. Together, they stepped forward with gentler expectations and deeper trust, knowing love promises no safety but guarantees companionship through uncertainty. In this quiet understanding, they found strength not in certainty but in connection. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it hand in hand, imperfect, honest, and grateful for the fragile beauty of simply being together, still choosing each other every single day. Reflection and gratitude. Their lives became a series of mindful, small moments. Breakfasts shared with soft conversation, evenings spent reading side by side, the comfort of quiet presence over words. They learned that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the choice to show up when it's easier to hide. Vulnerability didn't make them weaker. It made their bond stronger, deeper, more authentic. Mark discovered joy in pauses, in observing life rather than rushing it, and Kelly embraced the balance between telling a story and living it. Their love didn't promise forever, but it promised attentiveness, empathy, and the courage to face the unknown together. Moving forward. As time went on, their shared experiences of challenge and adjustment became a foundation. They celebrated small victories, healthier routines, renewed energy, unexpected laughter, and held each other through disappointments and setbacks. They became more patient with themselves and each other, aware that strength sometimes looks like stillness and that bravery sometimes looks like listening. The ordinary moments, the kind that once passed unnoticed, grew rich with significance. Holding hands, sharing smiles, breathing through uncertainty, they found beauty in what they could not control. The quiet strength of love. The diagnosis had changed them, but it did not define them. It shaped a deeper understanding of life, of what truly matters, and of the intimacy found in shared vulnerability. Together, they embraced the ebb and flow of fear and hope, learning that love is measured not in grand gestures, but in the courage to be present for one another. In the kitchen where mornings began softly, they laughed, danced, and lingered over cold coffee, understanding that life's fragility is also its gift. They moved forward without guarantees, but with the confidence that they would face whatever came next hand in hand, imperfect, honest, and profoundly grateful for the chance to simply be together.